let's look at this, the House of Rep halting the implementation of new CBN circular on ATM charges. This was supposed to commence 1st of March with the new charges for ATM withdrawals. If you withdraw from your bank's ATM, you get to be charged 100 naira for withdrawals of 20,000 naira or less. And then when you use off-site ATMs, you get to be charged 500 naira when you make withdrawals. So the House of Representatives yesterday directed the Central Bank of Nigeria to immediately suspend the implementation of increased ATM transaction charges and the removal of free ATM withdrawals for customers using other banks' ATMs as outlined in the circular that was released by the CBN. So adopting a motion of urgent public importance sponsored by Marcus Onobun of PDP, the House called for the suspension of the policy pending proper engagement with relevant House committees. So this was done yesterday. The decision to suspend that was taken by the House of Reps yesterday. We do not know yet if the CBN would comply with the House of Reps suspension of that charges pending proper, according to them, pending proper engagement with relevant House committees on why these charges should be implemented. But already, this is 12th of March, and this policy took effect from 1st of March. So we've gone almost 12 days into the implementation. I haven't been to the ATM today to know if the CBN has adhered to the House of Rep suspension of the ATM charges, but we'll do that investigation later today to find out if when you withdraw from the ATM, you still get to be charged 100 naira. But let's look at it. Nigerians groaned over that policy, and it looks like the House of Reps heard the cries of Nigerians, and they had to wade into the issue. Doug.
Well, I don't think the House of Reps has the power to suspend the circular issued by CBN. And I think it must also be very clear to the members of the House of Reps that CBN is not a commercial bank, which most of the time they are talking about oversight. CBN makes regulations, and it's supposed to be an independent policy and monitoring organ of government. And I think to that extent, people must be careful what their boundaries are in terms of trying to be very popular.
So this is an overreach?
Yes, for me it is certainly an overreach, and I think it's also a drive for popularity. And I think beyond popularity is the fact that they need to sit down with the CBN, who is the regulator, to say, okay, oh, what's happening? And I don't think it's something that we say, okay, we want to do to become very, very popular. There are a lot of issues here that we are talking about. CBN is trying to manage inflation. Now, CBN is trying to ensure that we are able to control money in circulation. So you need to sit down as a committee to reach out to the regulators to say, oh, why is this regulation coming? And not to suspend an action of another organ of government in your private city. There's a separation of powers. People must understand the limit to which people can act. You can't be interfering in the activity of another arm of government. Because you have your responsibility. Your core mandate is to make laws. You have not altered the laws that set CBN up. So the first issue that you have to do, are there legal issues here that require the attention of the National Assembly? Or is the National Assembly the one managing the monetary policy of the Federation? These are issues that people must separate in terms of running. Yes, there are a lot of people who have complained that, oh, the charges are much. But they also have listed several platforms in which people can do business and actually avoid some of those charges.
So what are those platforms that the CBN has listed? Are there e-channels where people can make transactions?
Oh, yes, they talk about the e-channels, the USS code, which is almost at free. They talked about internet banking.
The bank apps.
The bank apps. And all these are several channels through which people can make a choice of where they want to do their transaction. So not necessarily on the ATM. And I think it's important for them to even realize, and I mean the members of the House of Rep, without sounding immodest, is for them to also realize that this is another arm of government. Okay. The fact that you have an oversight role to see what they are doing is not to dictate policy measure to the organ of government.
Okay, while it may be an issue of overreach, let's look at it. So, the increase in the ATM charges, Nigerians have complained. The House of Rep, through this, is also complaining. So while the House of Rep may not have the powers to be able to tinker with any policy of the CBN, do you think it rests with the CBN to perhaps review the policy because of the outcry regarding the policy? And the channels that are alternatives, or supposed to be alternatives, they also come with cost, and they also have their challenges. What's your take?
So first of all, I think we must equally put into consideration that Section 4, 5, and 6 that establish the executive arm, the legislative, and the judicial arm of government has given them their own powers. And in accordance with this issue, the House of Representatives, the Green Chamber, they are in the right position. They are also the legislative arm of government, part of the second chamber of the legislative arm of government, charged with the responsibility of making law for the good and governance of Nigeria. Now, they also have that responsibility of oversight, the federal institutions, and the CBN is not exempted from that with regards to policy. This issue about policy affects the Nigerian on the street, for whom the House of Representatives are charged with the responsibility to make law that governs these people. And if something gets to them that is, a pain in their pocket, or that will bore hole in them, or that is going to worsen or exacerbate the level of their financial spendings, I think it is in the right place for the House of Representatives to step in to do that. And the House of Representatives will not step in to do that by dictating to the CBN. I don't think they're in a position to dictate. So if there is anything that I think the House of Representatives would have done, is to probably invite the CBN governor or any of the top officials that is saddled with that responsibility so they can have this conversation. Okay, so if we cannot suspend it at the moment, can we still bring down the price? Maybe that's a conversation that would have been solved on the table. However, when Mr. Olayemi Cardoso was asked a question on why this introduction, he made, I remember vividly 2 points that he made. One is to incentivize the banks, and 2 is to make cash available. Incentivize the banks and make cash available. Okay, how do you mean incentivize the banks? You mean they are not making enough profit? That you want to give them who gives incentive to the Nigerian that save in commercial banks that is called a savings account, and you do not have anything at your disposal? And he went on to say, look, if you cannot withdraw because you feel your bank ATM is not in front of your house, and the one in front of your house or your vicinity is that of another bank's ATM, in order for you to avoid that 100 naira charge, you need to go get another ATM, so that it will be comfortable to you. That ATM that you are going to get and apply also, it doesn't come for free. It comes with a cost, charge, almost 1,000 naira. It's almost 1,000 naira. Over 1,000 then you are going to have to maintain that ATM card, maintaining that of your banks too, with other several costs that comes across with it. I think the House of Representatives is in a justifiable position, not only to suspend it, however, to also call any of the officials, top officials who have the capacity to act in that place, to have a conversation that can bring respite to both parties.
Okay, so let's look at this. Suspending, maybe what should have come first is the proper consultation or engagement with the stakeholders, which they're going to do after the suspension. Because I do not think that the suspension would hold, and that's why I said earlier that...
Oh, it has to hold.
You can't say that it has to hold. It depends on the CBN now. It depends on the CBN now to either comply or say you don't have the powers to interfere or give us instructions what to do.
No, both of them belong to the same tier of government.
Hold on, the same tier. You do recall.
Legislative.
Yes, yes. But the legislative arm of government.
Scarcity. Hold on. You recall the cash scarcity period?
Yes.
There was opera. There was talk about let cash be available. Did anything happen? We've seen, because the CBN is the apex financial institution regulating...
It is under law.
Yes.
It was created by the law.
Yes.
Laws that were made by the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Maybe consultation should have happened first with the CBN, and then we now know what's going to happen. So there could have been escalation at that point after consultation to say, okay, this is what we have.
This is what we are getting wrong here.
Hold on, Pri. This is what we want to do. Because I do not think that the CBN would adhere to it. That's why I say we're going to check.
That would be to empower lawlessness.
We're going to check for today, for
and
tomorrow,
if that
does
not constitute a law,
No. See, Doc. No, wait just a moment. I wanted to come in first. Wait. No, wait. Just let me. That is not just. It's not a motion. Does the CBN, all ministers of the executive arm of government, before you become a minister, you go through parliament to become a minister. You go through screening of parliament to become a minister. It is also a responsibility and a constitutional right for the legislative arm of government to summon a minister and even to someone to invite Mr. President to come and explain something that has to do with policy direction.
So
now,
if
that is not done, so if they have the responsibility to do that, and they feel that your minister, or in this particular case, the CBN governor has brought out a policy that requires some form of explanation, that requires that it should be halted at the moment so we can rectify other issues that are begging for attention. It is a responsibility and it is a right constitutionally given to the House of Representatives.
So
it is not unwholesomely meddling. It is not meddling.
These are two things that you say.
A motion on the floor of an assembly is not a law.
Is this a motion or it's been told that the CBN...
motion.
It is not a motion. It's a motion. It was a motion raised.
A motion is not a law, and it's not a judgment that must be complied with. It's an appeal. So it's left for the CBN. If they want to make it a law, they make it a proper act, so they can pass it into a law.
No, that is not it. See, a policy of the executive arm of government does not go through parliament, so it does not become an act of parliament. Now, the House of Representatives has every right to stop and halt, suspend any policy by the executive arm of government that does not come through parliament. And if any law, if any policy, if any law, if anything, no, just a moment, because we have to demystify what a policy is and what a law or an act of parliament is. This particular case, why the CBN went ahead to increase this fare, it does not go through, it's not a law that should be enshrined in the act, in the act that established the CBN as the regulatory power of the banking institutions. No, they are wielding their powers from the same act.
Which law is
which
CBN
is a policy.
Which law did they break?
The CBN has not broken any law. However, the House of Representatives has the right of oversight, which is constitutionally enshrined, to call them to order. And that is what they are doing. They don't need to pass a parliamentary act for them to rectify this. No, this is a simple and small case.
This is it.
Yeah, what you should understand is that the Constitution of the Republic of Nigeria set up 3 different arms of government. You have the legislature, you have the executive, you have the judiciary. And it is done in such a way that one of the organs cannot interfere with the running of another organ.
So what is checks and balance?
Yeah, the checks and balance.
Interference is different from checks and balance.
Yeah,
and this is checks by the House of Representatives.
If you have to do a check on somebody, yes, they have the right to summon the CBN governor to appear before them, to tell them why they needed to do this, and ask him to come to the floor of the House to defend it. And it is the place of the CBN to say, this is the policy we are taking and for the interest of the nation. And I don't think that you can raise your hand in the floor of an assembly to stop an act of
it's not an
another
act.
arm
Hold on, please.
It's not an act.
activity. If you don't understand what act means,
No,
activity
I understand.
of another
It's
agency.
not an act. It's
Okay,
a
let's
policy.
not belabor this. Let's not belabor this argument.
You
Please,
cannot
please.
use
Let's not
your
belabor
hand
this
raising
issue.
in the National Assembly to stop a policy of another arm of government.
You can.
You cannot.
They have the right. They have the constitutional powers.
No, they don't.
Oh, they can.
Let's
They
not
can.
belabor
They
this
don't.
argument.
They don't.
It is because
This is not
the
a
National
debate.
Assembly did not stop Tinubu
This is
from
not-
that Naira design with it. Because they didn't stop him.
Hold
Does not mean they do not have that power.
Okay,
don't.
so
They
They
shrank
don't.
let's
back.
not belabor
They
this.
don't.
Let's not belabor this.
They don't.
So this is the point as making, that you recall what happened during the Naira scarcity period. Even when the Supreme Court gave a judgment and insisted that the old Naira note was legal tender, we found that using old Naira note was a problem. So there is one thing for even a law or a judgment to be given. It's another for that to be complied with. So if the Supreme Court had even given judgment that the old Naira note remains legal tender, yet we saw that for about 6 months, it was difficult being able to use the old Naira note in Nigeria as legal tender because of the challenges people had using it, and even with the banking system.
No, the
So-
banks did not reject it.
Were you able to use
The
old
banks
Naira
did not
notes
reject
within the
it.
banking
After
system?
the verdict of the Supreme Court,
Were you able to use that?
after the
Were you
verdict of
able
the
to
Supreme
use that?
Court,
It was a
if
challenge.
you say Nigerians
No,
did not
it
do
was
it,
a
you can say
challenge. It
the
was a challenge at that time.
The
Now, I
problems
said
that
that
time.
to say this. I said that to say this. Now, while you said two things, being able, the House of Rep, being able to call the CBN governor and any minister to ask questions, yes, they can do that. But to place suspension, that's where the question is. Is it over?
Are you saying they don't have that power?
Is it? No, I don't think they can
do they
suspend.
derive the
I don't
power?
think they can
Constitution.
suspend. I don't think they can
Can you cite
suspend
a section
the
of that constitution?
They can suspend
it has
any policy
Section
of the
4,
CBN.
5, and
But
6
they
of the
can
Constitution
interrogate.
establish the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. And one of the powers of the legislative arm of government is that they have the right to make law.
Yes.
And they have the right, when they have the right to make, they are only the arm charged with the authority to make law.
Yes.
No organ of government make law. The executive arm makes policies that does not necessarily need to go through parliament. If it wants to make law, it is called an executive an executive law, law that will be sponsored in the House, which will be, of course, the political party
All right,
that
not
is in
to
power
belabor
will
this.
sponsor that
We'll
on the
wait a few
on the
days.
House. Now, this is a policy. A policy
You
doesn't
said
need
that
to go.
over and over
No,
again.
okay,
We
because
don't
I
need
need
to
to make
No, you have made your point. You need to get
No, that is not just the point I want to make.
No, please, we're out of time. We're out of time on this.
Why you guys talking from making?
You have made enough points on this. We're just laboring this issue.
Stupid argument.
So,
We need to go on a break right now.
does the law empower the executive to also go and tell the legislature how they want to decide their bill? They don't.